Hey everyone, welcome back to all my listeners. This is episode 16 in season 16. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. My name is Sonal Patel, and this is the Paint the Medical Picture podcast series. All right, you guys, well, it is the middle of the month and the Christmas holiday is almost here. We are in the middle of Hanukkah. Well, we're a few days into Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa is going to round out the month of December. So I hope you guys are ready and have geared up for a festive, bubbly holiday season. I know I'm getting ready. I am getting ready to take some much needed time off. I know I was hinting at a month or so ago that I would let my audience know that I have some news, and the news is simply for myself. I'm really going to be spending some quality time with my family for the entire month of January. So I will be taking a small sabbatical, and the Paint the Medical Picture podcast will be on hold, or I will put out some bonus episodes. I'm not sure what I'm going to do because I have not missed a single episode in 5 years. But I thought it is high time that I do something for myself. I know I close out each and every month stating that everybody should be less burned out, less stressed out by taking time away. And it's high time that I take my own advice. And that is what I'm doing. There are people in need. And I decided, you know what, I am going to work really hard these past couple of months prior to my small sabbatical. So I'm very looking forward to it for the entire month of January. So that is my breaking news. But anyways, you guys, today's episode will hopefully be a short and sweet one, even though there is just healthcare news left, right, and center. It is kind of a bonanza month of healthcare news, especially with the new year. January 1st, 2026 is rapidly approaching. And as you know, those of us in the industry, this is a time of lots of news, lots of updates have happened, lots of final rules have dropped. But today, I want to talk about the fact that CMS is relaunching the PEPPER program. Now, there's no mention of those comparative billing reports, those CBRs that I've been highlighting on the podcast for years, but I will get into PEPPER in today's Newsworthy. And in my Trusty tip, I'm going to be focusing on the new LCDs, those local coverage determinations, and coordinating local coverage articles, those LCAs, that take effect on January 1st, 2026 for skin substitutes. They've also been all over the news. Everybody is talking about them. So I thought, let me dip my toes in this wheelhouse as well for skin substitutes. And then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and close out and round out today's episode with another remarkable quote on resilience from Thomas Edison. All right, you guys, let's get into it. So today's Newsworthy. CMS has launched the Program for Evaluating Payment Patterns Electronic Report, also called PEPPER, for short-term acute care hospitals. At this time, only authorized officials and access managers with active identity and access management system accounts can download their reports from the PEPPER portal. So CMS advises us to please coordinate with your authorized officials and your access managers to get your reports. And there is a website that is publicly available for the PEPPER program. Now, PEPPER helps hospitals review their billing data to make sure claims are accurate. Now, hospitals can use the PEPPER report to, number one, spot billing patterns that may need improvement. Number two, identify areas that may need audits or closer monitoring. Number three, find diagnosis-related groups or DRGs that may be undercoded or overcoded. And finally, fourth, they can use the PEPPER reports to track areas where patient stays are getting longer. Now, I know it's been quite a minute since I've talked about the PEPPER program on the podcast, so let me just go back and provide you with a little bit more detail to remind my audience what PEPPERs are intended to do. So the website states, what is PEPPER? And they provide us with a lot of information, which I will just share with you. It states, the Office of Inspector General, the OIG, encourages hospitals to develop and implement a compliance program to protect their operations from fraud and abuse. As part of its compliance program, a hospital should conduct regular audits to ensure charges for Medicare services are correctly documented and billed. The Program for Evaluating Payment Patterns Electronic Report, also called PEPR, can help guide hospitals' auditing and monitoring activities. PEPR is an electronic data report that contains a single hospital's claims data statistics for Medicare severity diagnosis-related groups, or MSDRGs, and discharges at risk for improper payment due to billing, coding, and/or admission necessity issues. Each PEPR contains statistics for the most recent federal fiscal quarters for each area at risk for improper payments, referred to in the report as, quote, target areas. Data in PEPR are presented in graphs and tables that depict the hospital's target area percentages over time. PEPR also includes reports on the hospital's top medical and surgical DRGs for one-day stays. Index Analytics, along with its partners Integrity Management Services, Inc. and GovCon Growth Solutions, LLC, develops and distributes PEPR under their contract with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. Now, all of the data tables, graphs, and reports in PEPR were designed to assist the hospital in identifying potential overpayments as well as potential underpayments. PEPR does not identify the presence of payment errors, but it can be used as a guide for auditing and monitoring efforts. A hospital can use PEPR to compare its claims data over time to identify potential areas of concern, including significant changes in billing practices, possible over or undercoding, and changes in length of stay. And now it's time for my best practice tips in Trusty Tip. Now, there are both LCDs and LCAs that become effective on January 1st, 2026 for skin substitutes. Specifically, the title of the LCD is Skin Substitute Grafts, Cellular and Tissue-Based Products for the Treatment of Diabetic Foot Ulcers and Venous Leg Ulcers. Now, CMS just put out a fact sheet on Monday, giving us a gentle heads up, and it states, quote, all 7 of CMS's Part A and Part B Medicare Administrative Contractors, the MACs, will issue updated final local coverage determination, LCDs, for skin substitute grafts, cellular and tissue-based products for the treatment of diabetic foot ulcers and venous leg ulcers that will be effective January 1st, 2026. The LCDs provide access to multiple evidence-based skin substitute products for Medicare beneficiaries with diabetic foot ulcers and venous leg ulcers. The LCDs only apply to these indications and do not impact payment of these products for other uses. They also describe important frequency and utilization limits that promote patient safety and reasonable use of these products, end quote. Now they go on and let us know details. Quote, the effective date of the original LCDs was delayed for CMS to review coverage policies for skin substitute products, and an additional 6-month period was granted when stakeholders could submit high-quality evidence of effectiveness for these products. CMS received evidence submissions of 66 skin substitute products by the November 1st, 2025 deadline. Products were categorized into 3 groups. The first group was for coverage. Products meeting the evidence threshold outlined in the LCDs that will be covered by Medicare beginning January 1st, 2026. The second group is for non-covered. These are for products for which manufacturers have not to date submitted adequate evidence that their products meet the reasonable and necessary standard or identified any ongoing relevant research. And finally, the third group is for the 12-month status quo period. And these are for the products that have published interim results, published or submitted protocols, have an assigned clinical trial number, or demonstrated ongoing clinical trial or peer-reviewed investigational research published between the posting date of the proposed LCDs and November 1st, 2025. The updated final LCDs do not establish a coverage policy for the products in the 12-month status quo category. As is always the case, a product with neither a positive or a negative LCD coverage determination must, nevertheless, meet the, quote, reasonable and necessary, end quote, standard in Section 1862A(1)(a) of the Social Security Act and any other applicable requirements in order to be paid. At the MAC's discretion, the products can be paid while the product sponsors complete their studies. At the conclusion of the 12-month status quo period, the MACs will initiate a reconsideration of the LCDs, reviewing any evidence received by December 31st, 2026. The MACs will also reconsider coverage for products non-covered under the LCDs if sponsors submit additional evidence that demonstrates that the product is reasonable and necessary for the Medicare population. The reconsideration of the LCDs is scheduled for release in early 2027. This approach balances evidence-based coverage standards while recognizing manufacturers' good faith efforts to meet clinical evidence standards for coverage and minimizes market disruption, while still distinguishing between products based on the quality of evidence submitted. The MACs will provide manufacturers with clear information about what health outcomes and research they expect to see in future submissions. Now, the MACs have identified 18 covered products, including one product that submitted new research in 2025. Now, for each of those 18 covered products, there are 18 HCPCS codes. Now, there are also an additional 154 products that are considered discretion products. And for those 154 discretion products, there are also 154 HCPCS codes. And finally, the MACs identified an additional 158 products that are non-covered products. And there are, therefore, a coordinating 158 HCPCS codes for those non-covered products. Take the time to review the Coordinating Local Coverage article, the LCA, which discusses all of the coding guidance, the utilization parameters, the modifiers, multiple wounds, and of course, all of the necessary documentation requirements. And finally, I focus Season 16 Spark on resilience. I want this 16th season Spark to be filled with our world's thought leaders, writers, artists, philosophers, everyone who inspires us with their statements involving resilience. So, in this week's inspiring quote in Spark is from Thomas Edison. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. Absolutely true, right? This quote means so much when we have moments of doubt. We are reminded about the power we actually have, the power that lies within, the resilience from which we take each step after we make a mistake or encounter a mishap. We allow ourselves time to learn and try again and again. I'm happy Thomas Edison's spark burns brightly and can still inspire so very many. All right, you guys. Well, that wraps up today's short and sweet episode, despite the oodles and oodles of news that I did not even get to touch upon today. There's so much. I am providing educational webinars and lectures left, right, and center. There's so much in telehealth. There's so much in the final rule, the Medicare physician fee schedule. But I simply don't have time to discuss all of those matters on a podcast. But I hope you got a lot out of this short and sweet episode. There's a lot of great information that you guys should be looking towards. So I hope you are looking forward to a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. You're continuing to celebrate your Hanukkah, and you're looking forward to Kwanzaa that's coming up just around the corner. So really hope you guys are making time to relax, making time to make festive food items and beverages in your homes to celebrate the season. I know I am. I've been to a lot of parties over the weekends. A lot of food has been shared at friends' tables, and looking forward to see my family and looking forward to a much needed sabbatical in the month of January. I know I'm looking forward to it. So there's one more episode for me to drop in the month of December. And of course, it is going to feature fraud, waste, and abuse highlights for the month. And after that, I will not see you guys again in the new year until the month of February. So I wish you guys all an incredible, incredible holiday season, and stay tuned for next week's episode. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening on today's episode. And I hope every week with me brings you closer to helping your providers paint a masterpiece. See you next Wednesday.